Hello guys and welcome to another episode of tutorialing in rFactor 2. Today we're going to talk about the button mappings and the controller settings for your rFactor 2 simulation. And I give you a little bit of a tip and a little bit of a trick, but at the end of the day, it's all about personal settings. So disclaimer at this point, whatever I tell you might be completely wrong for you and might not be 100% to what you would like to experience when being in a simulator. However, if you got any questions whatsoever, put them down in the comments area below. Maybe also note down the timestamp so I can exactly know what kind of settings we are talking about at that moment where you have the question. And beyond that, if you guys appreciate our videos, if you guys appreciate our tutorials, then give the video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and make sure you ring the bell to receive more content on rFactor 2 in general. However, let's go into rFactor 2 and into the game controller settings. Right, on the rFactor 2 simulation, once again, you need to click onto the gear. And in this case, we're starting with the assignment of the controls in the first place. I tell you what is the most important things that you need to put, and I tell you what you can rather leave empty. So again, here we have 4 different categories: driving, assists and gameplay, camera and seat, as well as UI and chat. Let's start with the driving part. So of course you want to map the most important car controls, which is throttle, brake, steer left, steer right, shift up, shift down, clutch, and neutral. Why do I have set neutral? I have a neutral button on the steering wheel, which is important for when you're racing. I don't know, like when you like to click a lot on these shifters, let's say. So what you don't want to experience is when braking for a corner, you don't want to go into neutral by accident. So if you put a neutral button, your gearbox will never ever change out of the driving gears by just putting down the downshifter. So if you're still in first and you put it on the downshifter, nothing will happen. However, there's 2 ways to get into neutral and then put in the reverse gear if necessary. Number 1, you press the neutral button. Number 2, you press or you pull both shifters at the same time. So upshift and downshift at the same time. In whatever gear the car is, it will jump into neutral. However, if you not have set in the neutral button, as soon as you're in first gear and you once again pulling the downshifter, your car will jump into neutral. So if you're like me, clicking too much on the downshift button in the braking zone, trying to slow down the car, then you want to put a neutral button as a safety feature right here. Front handbrake, rear handbrake, front flap is usually not what cars have. Some cars might have a handbrake, so you can assign the handbrake to that. I've never had a front DRS flap so far, but I do have a rear DRS flap in most of the Formula cars that we're racing, so make sure to map that too. Here you find alternate throttle, alternate brake, alternate steering and shifting controls. Those are, as they say, alternate. So if one of these might not work for you, or in general you might need, let's say, an alternative brakes, or after a formation lap when the gridding is on a hill, you don't want to move around, but at the same time you don't want to keep pressing the brake all the time, you map the brake, the alternative brake, to a button, and while stationary waiting for the lights, you keep the alternative brake pressed with a button. On the electronics, I advise you have on ignition and starter. Very important, a pit request. Of course, the pit request also turns on when you go into pit road, but in most of the series, your virtual pit crew needs time to prepare the pit stop. That goes down from 10 to 20, maybe even 25 seconds. So make sure at the beginning of your last lap before the pit stop, hit the pit request button in order to be able to configure the pit stop. Very important, speed limiter, headlights, wipers. You can forget about the horn. Most of the leagues and communities dislike using the horn anyway, but Even some F1 cars have a horn attached, so if you want to go honking around, then have the horn on. Launch control is something some cars may or may not have. You'll find out whether when you have the launch control mapped, but pressing the button in a car that doesn't have it, then the message center pops up saying this car has no launch control available. The arm attack mode is only necessary for electric cars or in general for Formula E. As you know, Formula E has those attack mode zones. You need to first arm the system, then go through the attack mode arming area, and then the attack mode is armed and activated. Between clicking this button and activating attack mode, 5 seconds time period is given, so you need to click that right before you go into the attack mode slope. Brake bias forward, rearwards, self-explanatory, sorry for the bad English. Traction control override, that is a button on the steering wheel that when you have an traction control on, whether that is game setting, so whether that is gameplay traction control, or whether that is the actual inbuilt traction control, like you have it in GT3s, in LMP2, in the LMP3, and in the GTE runners, that disables the traction control for as long as you press it. So let's say if you spun around, you just put neutral, rev the car, press the button, the traction control override, click first, and the rear tires are spinning, and you could do a J-turn to get back on the racing track as soon as possible. Stiffen or soften the ARBs in the front and the back. It's interesting, especially for the IndyCar. Same with the track bar and wedge, which is interesting for IndyCar or NASCAR racing. Again, whether you need that or not need it is more down to whether you are racing a specific car or rather not. On the powertrain, you can map buttons to engage whatever gear just with a single button. As you can see, they are all empty for me. Usually you don't need that at all. I don't know why the setting is there. Personally, I think it's pretty useless. However, very important are again increasement and decrement of mixture, boost, and temporary boost. So there are most likely workshops and non-DLC cars that have engine mix and engine boost. The DLC cars such as GT3, GTE, LMP, they only have mixture. So classic engine mixture, of course, a mix between efficiency and power regarding whatever race situation you're in. Same with the boost. Some cars do have a boost setting. They are really powerful. They can kill the engine though if you use too much of them, or they also influence the fuel usage. So again, just like the engine mix, the engine boost is a kind of setting to alter the power of an engine provided. Activate the push to pass is for cars that the temporary boost. Well, it's like the traction control override. For as long you press the button, for that period of time you got maximum boost available on the car, as long as it's allowed in the session. Activate the push to pass is important for any car with a PTP, so the Formula Pro car, the Indy car. I think the BTCC cars have a push to pass in 2022 regulations. So if you press the button, push to pass is activated, and if you press the button again, it's getting deactivated. Same with, well, this is basically just for checking. So when you press that button, you'll get a reminder or a response from the game how many push to pass seconds you still got over, or you still got left for usage. Power demand, similar to boost. I've never ever used the setting. I don't know if there's any car that is using it. Personally, this and those three settings will probably be very, very, very little used. So you don't really need them. However, the brake map up and brake map down. So there are obviously cars that have an engine brake, just like the Formula Pro car. You want to have them up and down. You want to have them available to use them to alter the electronics of the car. Moving on with the assists and the gameplay. those are just to activate helps, driving helps. I advise to keep on invulnerability. Personally, I never ever change the setting here. You just want to keep them so you can click them if you need them. The onboard TC increase is the same setting than the brake map. So traction control on rFactor 2 in the meanwhile can have 3 settings. A general traction control, which is the TC. Then a TC power cut, which is the amount of traction control delivered by the traction control algorithm when cutting the power. So if you are over a little bit of a threshold when sliding, or when the wheels are turning more different than the actual ground speed, then the amount of power cut is being put on the engine. And the TC slip angle, as in when at which slip angle of the rear tires or of the driven tires the traction control is about to kick in. So basically an overall traction control setting, how hard the traction control kicks in and when the traction control kicks in what kind of situation. Also, the onboard ABS increase, interesting for GT3 cars and for the Alpine Cup car. They are running onboard ABS in their cars, and you want to be able to alter them throughout the run inside a race as well. The most important, and I really see most important button for your steering wheel though, is the reset FFB button. There is potential situations where your force feedback is not working. So you click race and you're turning on the wheel and like, oh no, I got no FFB whatsoever, what am I gonna do? Then you press this button, this will initiate rFactor 2 to restart the FFB engine within a split second really, and get your FFB in 99% of all cases back up to work, and you're good to race. Toggle the hardware plugins. That is when you're using hardware plugins, when you want to have them on or off. I have it mapped. I've never ever used it though. Those settings down are about VR. I do not use VR, sadly, cannot really say anything towards or against it. In the gameplay, the driver hot swap has, I think, never ever worked, so I have not mapped it. But I have mapped the passenger select button. So when you're doing endurance racing and you want to get into the car with your teammate, you want to go into the server as a spectator, and usually the game is already set like this. So as soon as you click the passenger on the car that you're riding with, you get selectable for the pit menu. However, if that for whatever reason becomes unselected, you don't need to do the reprocess all again. You just press that button, and whatever car you're currently riding with, the message then appears for the driver that you are now riding with him and you're now selectable for the pit stop sequence for a driver swap. Instant replay, pause and skip formation, all settings for the single player. Restart the race, the same. Screenshot with F12. Then you can take nicey dicey screenshots in whatever session, so be careful with that. Time acceleration only working in single player mode. If you want to get a car quickly go around a circuit up to a certain corner, you can click Control X, and the PC is fast forwarding as much as its capacities allows in the video or in the actual simulation. CPU time and frame rate, this is Control F usually here, so Control F and Control C. They give you information about your CPU and GPU usage. Very important for troubleshooting or for finding out how the simulation is performing on your PC. Last but not least, camera, seat and settings. Driving cameras, onboard cameras, swingman cameras, spectator cameras and trackside cameras. I would all leave them where they are. Those are the buttons that are about the above the arrows on the keyboard. Just click them through step by step to find out what they are doing. Very important, maybe the look behind button that you want to maybe have on the steering wheel, so you can look behind, see where your opponents are. About the swingman, those are on the numpad of your keyboard. I would just leave them wherever they are as well. Click the picture up button, use the numpad to see what the cameras are doing. Those are only to be used in the replay, really. Same with the free camera, different kind of exposures and focuses and presets and camera activities can be set in. I advise to leave them as they are and find out what they are doing. If you're doing fancy screenshots or if you're doing video editing, then you may want to set them up on a special driver's profile, which we're going to talk in a short minute about. So that you have them available purely when you're doing editing, and you have a driver profile ready when you're doing driving. UI and chat, the toggles about the HUDs. Display mode is important to have it set so you can cycle through the MFD. Cycling through the MFD means going through the message history, through the standard display, through the PID display, and so on. So this is why I have them empty. I just click the button multiple times to cycle through that displays. The display vehicle labels on the tab or on the tabulator is to show you a name and the car number above the car ahead of you. Is usually turned on in ACC. It's not available in iRacing, I think. But yeah, it's the toggle setting whether you have display with a name and the car number above the head of the car ahead of you, or rather not. In the UI interaction, toggle the cursor with delete. So there might be situations where the this mouse cursor disappears, or where you want to have it disappear for taking screenshots. You can do that with the delete button. Very important also, between the display mode and or on your steering wheel or on your button box, are PID menu up and down, increasement and decrement of the values. So those buttons you need to set up how much fuel you're taking, what tires are taken, do you change tires, do you not change tires, do you change drivers, do you not change drivers. So very important to set these up. Those are just for the replays, so that is all the arrows, and if you press some control and that arrow, then you do fast rewind, fast forward. That is when going into the direct replay button. Vote yes and vote no. Usually yes is on the 1, no is on the 0. I have removed it for whatever reason here on my keyboard for, well, most likely video editing reasons. That is it about the assignment of controls. When you have the controls all assigned, remember the brake buttons, the brake, throttle, steering settings. Then you want to calibrate your controls. Here you have the possibility to set yourself the profiles. You see a lot of profiles by me here. In the middle column, you have the input calibration. So here you can check dead zones. Here you can check sensitivities on the control columns, whatever, and put them down to your liking. As you can see, I have used a little bit of shaping for the throttle sensitivity on my old PC. So here you can set them. And then the most important part for most of the guys, force feedback settings. And now, I know we're late in the video already again, but you want to surely have type wheel, so that tells rFactor 2 what kind of controller you're using. Smoothing, I want to have that always on 0 because it filters out some slim and small effects of the actual FFB. The car-specific FFB multiplier is a setting on how hard your force feedback is going in that specific car. So there might be, from personal experience, a Ferrari GTE where the car-specific FFB mult needs to be pretty high in order to have forces at all. And then there's other cars like the Formula Pro car or the stock car, where you want to have that setting extremely low because otherwise the steering wheel might kill your wrists straight away. Minimum steering torque, have that on a 0. Yes, it will give you a dead feeling on the steering wheel itself, but if you put it up, the wheel starts shaking left, right, left, right, left, right if you don't have it in the hands. And also, I think it's taken a little bit of fidelity from the FFB away. Force feedback strength. Is the minus or plus? The minus tells you the game to always pull the wheel to the center. If you have it on plus, the game will always pull the steering wheel to the maximum steering rotation. So if you bend your wheel slightly to the right, the FFB will go put it completely to the right. So very important, have this on a negative value. About the steering settings, important that you set the software as being the rotation limit mode. This will give a feeling on the rFactor 2 FFB or on your steering wheel when the maximum set steering wheel range of your game profiler is reached. Elsewise, have maximum wheel angle mode to custom. The default maximum wheel angle set identically to your setting on the SimuCube, on Logitech, on whatever OSW or on your Fanatic game profiler is used. So whatever you got on the profiler, on the actual hardware driver, you need to put that the same on the steering settings here inside rFactor 2. I think that's quite clear. Range set by vehicle on means in the setup you always find a value about the steering range. Whatever degree is set in the setup is going to be applied to your steering wheel. That means whatever you do on the steering wheel, you do that on the steering wheel in game as well. It's more accurate though to choose yourself a steering wheel range you can get along with. In best case, formula cars are being tend to run between 400 and 450. When you get into GTs or LMP cars, that might be 500 up to 560. At the end, it is a personal liking though. And also speaking about the personal liking, now comes the part where the gaming experience or the simulation and reality experience differs from the esport settings. Speed sensitivity, you want to have that on 0%. If you get that up, the faster you go, the more rFactor 2 softens and tweaks your inputs that you give into the controllers, making that more smooth. So let's say if you have it on 50% and at 300 kph, you're turning maximum to the right, the in-game only turns a little bit to the right. So to filter out inaccurate inputs, let's say. I have them off because you want to have full control at all speeds without the computer interfering with that. Exaggerated yaw. That is a setting where the camera is moving according to the car movement as well. You want to have that turned off because that gives you only it gives you a fixed camera position that is not moving left or right, whatever your car is doing, because you want to feel whatever your car is doing by the FFB and just by your participation of what's going on anyway. The look ahead, you want to have that to 0 as well. The more percentage you put there, the more the camera is being turned to a position, or to a corner where you head to. So when you are steering to the right, the camera is also being turned to the right. Might be interesting for VR. Personally, I want to have it off because I want to have the camera as fixed as possible so that only me looking elsewhere on the screen or me focusing on a postcard or whatever is being always the same situation. Same with the head physics and head vibrations. You want to have them completely turned off, because you don't want to have the vibration of the car, you don't want to have the vibration of the chassis, you don't want to have the vibration of engines or curbs being displayed in your camera and maybe offsetting your vision, or maybe offsetting your feeling within the car. So I have this all turned off, so all that you see on my screens and in the streams is whatever bump I'm hitting, whatever hill I'm taking, I always have a fixed position of the car camera inside the cockpit. Yes guys, and that's actually going to do it for the settings here on rFactor 2 when it comes to the calibration of controls and their assignment. If you have more questions to that, feel free to put them down in the comments area below. We are obviously having a look into those. I'm trying to answer each one as good as possible as I can. And I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. If you did so, please give the video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, ring the bell, and receive notifications for more streams and tutorials about rFactor 2. And other than that, enjoy racing on rFactor 2 altogether. See you and goodbye.